They made us laugh every week in our living rooms, playing lovable characters that felt like part of the family. But when the cameras stopped rolling, some of these beloved sitcom stars revealed a darker side that shocked their castmates and crew members. From racist outbursts to physical violence, from diva demands to career-ending meltdowns, these actors proved that their on-screen charm was just an act. The stories that emerged from behind the scenes paint a very different picture than the one audiences saw at home. And in some cases, the bad behavior was so extreme that it destroyed careers, ended friendships, and got people fired from hit shows at the peak of their success. Here are 12 shocking stories about sitcom actors who are jerks in real life. Chevy Chase used racial slurs and got fired from Community. Chevy Chase came to Community with an already legendary reputation for being difficult, but what happened during his time on the show went far beyond typical Hollywood drama. According to multiple cast and crew members, Chase made racist jokes toward co-star Donald Glover repeatedly during production, once telling him between takes that people only thought he was funny because he was black. Creator Dan Harmon later admitted he had to apologize to Glover after particularly rough nights dealing with Chase's behavior. The situation reached a breaking point during filming of a Season 4 episode when Chase allegedly used the N-word on set while questioning dialogue that involved a blackface hand puppet bit. Cast member Yvette Nicole Brown walked off set immediately and refused to return until Chase apologized. When the incident leaked to the press, Chase reportedly had a complete meltdown on set, screaming at everyone and demanding to know who leaked the story. Director Jay Chandrasekhar, who was there that day, recalled Chase storming onto the set, yelling about his ruined career and telling everyone to go to hell. Chase never returned after that outburst and was written out of the show. The hostility between Chase and the production became so notorious that when Dan Harmon threw the Season 3 wrap party, he got the entire cast and crew to chant a profanity-laced insult at Chase in front of Chase's wife and daughter as they walked in. Years later, when the cast held a quarantine reunion table, read they specifically chose to perform the episode about Pierce Hawthorne's death, celebrating Chase's fictional demise while pointedly not inviting him to participate. Charlie Sheen's Meltdowns Destroyed, 2.5 Men. At the height of 2.5 Men's success, Charlie Sheen was the highest-paid actor in television history, earning nearly $2 million per episode. But his personal demons and increasingly erratic behavior turned the set into a nightmare for everyone involved. Sheen's substance abuse issues led to multiple production shutdowns, and his verbal attacks on creator Chuck Lorre became increasingly unhinged and public. He went on talk shows calling Lorre by an anti-Semitic nickname and claiming he had tiger blood and Adonis DNA in bizarre rants that captivated and horrified the nation. The studio eventually had enough and fired him from the show in 2011, one of the most spectacular implosions in television history. But Sheen apparently learned nothing from the experience, because when he landed another sitcom called Anger Management just a year later, the same patterns emerged. Halfway through the second season, Sheen reportedly got into a fight with co-star Selma Blair over his work ethic, and he allegedly sent her expletive-filled texts demanding she be removed from the show or he would walk. Blair was fired shortly after. Even years after getting sober, Sheen's former co-stars have made it clear they have no interest in ever working with him again. John Cryer, who spent years alongside Sheen on 2.5 Men, told interviewers that while he wishes Sheen well, the idea of working together again is completely out of the question, because the experience was simply too difficult and damaging. Thomas Gibson kicked a producer and lost Criminal Minds. Thomas Gibson played the calm, collected leader of the BAU team on Criminal Minds for 11 seasons, but behind the scenes, he had a volcanic temper that eventually cost him everything. In 2010, Gibson allegedly shoved assistant director Ian Wolfe during a late-night location shoot, an incident that led to mandatory anger management classes but somehow didn't result in termination. Then in 2013, he was arrested for drunk driving and pleaded no contest to reckless driving charges. But the studio continued to employ him, even as staff members reportedly described him as volatile and frequently verbally abusive to cast and crew. The final straw came in 2016 when Gibson was directing an episode and got into a heated argument with writer and producer Virgil Williams on set. According to multiple reports, the disagreement escalated and Gibson physically kicked Williams. The studios launched an investigation, and within days, Gibson was fired from the show after what turned out to be his third strike in 5 years. Sources close to the production said many staffers were shocked he hadn't been let go after the 2010 shoving incident, and that his demanding personality had made him difficult to work with for years. Gibson's behavior was reportedly so problematic that he insisted on a special schedule to accommodate his frequent trips home to Texas, which frustrated other actors and producers who had to work around his needs. Since his firing, Gibson has done almost no significant work in Hollywood, and it's widely believed the bridges he burned on Criminal Minds effectively ended his career. Janet Hubert's feud with Will Smith nearly destroyed her career. The recasting of Aunt Viv on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air remains one of television's most dramatic behind-the-scenes stories, and for decades, Janet Hubert was painted as the difficult one. But the truth turned out to be far more complicated and heartbreaking. After 3 seasons playing Vivian Banks, Hubert left the show following a contract dispute. But Will Smith went public with claims that she wanted the show to be about her character and that she was difficult to work with. Those accusations followed Hubert for nearly 30 years and essentially blacklisted her in Hollywood. She later revealed that calling a black woman difficult in the entertainment industry is the kiss of death, making it nearly impossible to get work. What Smith didn't mention was that Hubert was pregnant during her final season and was offered what she called a terrible contract for the 4th season, one that would have paid her for only 10 weeks of work while preventing her from taking any other jobs. When she refused and tried to negotiate, the show replaced her with Daphne Maxwell Reid. Hubert claimed that Smith poisoned the rest of the cast against her, and she felt completely abandoned and betrayed by people she thought were friends. The isolation and career destruction led to such dark moments that Hubert later admitted she had suicidal thoughts, feeling so broken that she lost everything, including support from her own family. It wasn't until a 2020 reunion special that Smith finally admitted he had made a horrible error, acknowledging he wasn't sensitive to what she was going through during her pregnancy, and that he could see how he made the set very difficult for her. Roseanne Barr made writers wear numbers instead of learning their names. Roseanne Barr built her sitcom around the image of a relatable working-class mother, but behind the scenes she created what many described as a toxic and chaotic work environment. According to former writer Stan Zimmerman, Barr forced all the writers to wear numbered T-shirts so she could point at them to fire them without having to know their names. Zimmerman said he was explicitly told when hired to never let Barr see the whites of his eyes because she could point and fire at any moment, leading him to always stand behind the tallest person on set. The atmosphere was so tense that people walked on eggshells around her, and the turnover among writers and staff was constant. During the show's first season, Barr fought for creative control by opposing showrunner Matt Williams' authority, eventually refusing to say certain lines and walking off set until Williams was fired after just 13 episodes. Reports from her later talk show described her as demanding, paranoid, and routinely cruel and demeaning to coworkers. She reportedly demanded, as part of her talk show contract, that producers buy her a house in addition to her $5 million yearly salary. When ABC revived Roseanne in 2018, the network apparently chose to overlook not just her history of offensive tweets, but also her documented history of mistreating the people she worked with. Tom Arnold, her ex-husband who worked on the original show, said he wasn't surprised when she was fired for a racist tweet about Valerie Jarrett in 2018, calling her a ticking time bomb who couldn't control herself. Shelley Long created constant friction on Cheers. Shelley Long's departure from Cheers after 5 seasons surprised fans who loved her chemistry with Ted Danson, but cast members later revealed there had been significant tension on set for years. Kelsey Grammer claimed in his autobiography that Long tried relentlessly to get him removed from the show, insisting that writers take out his laugh lines after every script reading. Grammer suggested that producers kept his character Frasier Crane around longer, partly because Long's constant complaints about him had irritated them. Long was also reportedly very particular about her character and would get heavily involved in script discussions in ways that frustrated the writing staff and her co-stars. Ted Danson complained that Long was frequently late getting to set and off the mark with her timing, which he found frustrating during filming. Long defended herself by saying the complex costumes she had to wear as a woman made it more difficult to be on time, but the friction was undeniable. Rhea Perlman confirmed years later that there was friction between Long and the cast, though she declined to go into specific details. While some Cheers writers praised Long's talent and work ethic, and Danson himself said the tension was never personal, it's clear that her intense approach to the character and her reported efforts to control storylines created real problems. Long eventually left the show because she felt she was repeating herself and wanted to spend more time with her daughter, but her relationships with some cast members never fully recovered. When Long skipped a recent Cheers reunion, it served as a reminder that some wounds from that era apparently never completely healed. Cybill Shepherd's diva behavior, extended filming for hours. Cybill Shepherd starred in her own sitcom appropriately titled Cybill, but her behavior on set reportedly lived up to every diva stereotype imaginable. Shepherd was extremely unhappy whenever her co-stars received more attention than she did, and she reportedly became furious when Christine Baranski won an Emmy for her supporting role on the show. But what really drove the crew crazy was Shepherd's obsessive demands about how she was filmed. She insisted on being backlit in every single shot, while explicitly demanding that co-star Nancy stay in the shadows without backlighting. On top of that, Shepherd reportedly required cue cards for her lines, which added even more time to an already lengthy filming process. According to showrunner Howard Gould, the actual filming took forever because of Shepherd's ridiculous lighting requirements. A scene that should have taken minutes to shoot stretched into hours because the lighting had to be adjusted perfectly for Shepherd in every single frame. The crew found her behavior so insufferable that Gould later wrote a play inspired by Shepherd titled simply Diva. The behavior was apparently so notorious that rumors circulated for years that the writers later penned an episode of a different show where a character based on Shepherd was killed off as revenge. Whether that rumor is true or not, it speaks to just how difficult Shepherd apparently made life for the people working around her during her sitcom years. Kirk Cameron's religious demands ruined Growing Pains. Kirk Cameron wasn't always difficult to work with, but everything changed when he converted to Christianity at age 17 while starring on Growing Pains. What followed was a series of increasingly extreme demands that made him unbearable to work with, according to cast and crew. Cameron's newfound religious beliefs led him to insist that his on-screen girlfriend be fired from the show because she had appeared in a magazine he deemed inappropriate. He didn't stop there, later demanding that producers kill off Matthew Perry's character simply because Cameron disagreed with Perry's lifestyle and beliefs. Cameron also began objecting to storylines and scripts that he felt conflicted with his religious views, essentially trying to control the creative direction of the entire show based on his personal convictions. Cast members found his behavior unwelcoming and his constant demands exhausting. The irony was that Growing Pains had given Cameron his big break and made him a teen idol, but his rigid approach to imposing his beliefs on everyone else made him a nightmare to work with. Producers and writers had to constantly navigate around his objections and demands, turning what should have been a straightforward sitcom into a minefield of religious restrictions. By the time the show ended, Cameron had thoroughly burned bridges with many of his co-stars and crew members who felt he had let his ego and newfound faith turn him into someone who was impossible to collaborate with. Suzanne Somers demanded equal pay and got exiled from Three's Company. Suzanne Somers became America's sweetheart as Chrissy Snow on Three's Company. But when she dared to ask for equal pay with her male co-star, the network made an example of her in one of Hollywood's most brutal punishments. By 1980, the show was pulling in 20 million viewers a week, and Somers had the highest demographic numbers of any woman in television. Her co-star John Ritter was making $150,000 per episode, while Somers was stuck at $30,000. When her contract came up for renewal, she asked for a raise to match Ritter's salary, believing her contribution to the show's success warranted equal pay. A BC refused and offered only a $5,000 increase instead. The network had just been forced to give raises to the female leads of Laverne and Shirley and reportedly decided to make an example of a woman so that no other actress would dare ask for equal pay again. Rather than negotiate, they systematically destroyed her. During her final contracted season, Somers was isolated from the rest of the cast and crew in a way that was designed to humiliate her. Security guards escorted her to a separate side set where she filmed brief phone call scenes by herself. She wasn't allowed to interact with any of her former co-stars, only seeing the wardrobe person who brought her clothes. The show used her for brief appearances to string viewers along while they auditioned replacements. Cast and crew were apparently told that Somers was greedy and trying to ruin the show, turning everyone against her. When her contract finally ended, she was written out entirely and replaced. The network then ran a smear campaign calling her difficult and greedy, effectively blacklisting her from television for years. Somers couldn't get an interview anywhere because she was considered trouble. The punishment was so severe and the message so clear that, according to Somers, Roseanne Barr was the first woman to ask for a raise in the 8 years following Somers' firing. Though Somers eventually found success with the Thigh Master and other ventures, and though she's now celebrated as a trailblazer for equal pay, what happened to her on Three's Company remains one of Hollywood's most shameful examples of punishing women for advocating for themselves. Kelsey Grammer struggled with addiction on Cheers. While Kelsey Grammer is now celebrated for his iconic portrayal of Frasier Crane across 20 years of television, his behavior during the early years of Cheers was reportedly problematic due to his severe substance abuse issues. In 1988, during the show's 6th and 7th seasons, Grammer was arrested for drunk driving and cocaine possession, legal troubles that exposed the extent of his addiction. According to sources close to the production, Grammer's behavior on set during his darkest periods infuriated castmates and crew members who had to deal with the consequences of his personal struggles. The irony wasn't lost on anyone that in his autobiography, Grammer focused heavily on complaints about co-star Shelley Long's alleged difficult behavior while glossing over his own serious problems that were affecting the production. Multiple people involved with Cheers have suggested that Grammer's substance abuse issues made him unreliable and difficult to work with during certain periods, though they've also credited him with eventually getting clean and becoming more professional. But it's worth noting that Grammer was quick to publicly criticize Long for trying to undermine him, telling stories that painted her as the villain when his own documented legal troubles and addiction issues were causing real disruption to the show. The fuller picture that emerged over time showed that the Cheers set had tensions coming from multiple directions, not just from Long's perfectionism. Grammer has since acknowledged his struggles with addiction and has spoken about how his personal problems affected his work, but at the time, his issues created real challenges for a production that was trying to make one of television's most beloved comedies. Patrick Dempsey made Grey's Anatomy a hostile workplace. Though Grey's Anatomy is technically a drama, Patrick Dempsey's behavior during his tenure earned him a reputation that extended across the television industry. Ellen Pompeo, who played the show's lead Meredith Grey, admitted in 2019 that the first 10 years of production had serious culture issues with really toxic work environments and very bad behavior. Dempsey was specifically called out as being extremely difficult to work with for both cast and crew members. He clashed frequently with Pompeo and series creator Shonda Rhimes, with his actions often leaving people baffled. As the highest-paid actor on the show during his tenure, Dempsey apparently felt entitled to special treatment, which created friction with Pompeo, who was the actual star. According to Pompeo, she repeatedly tried to get Dempsey to negotiate their salaries together so they could stand united, but he refused every single time, leaving her to fight alone for equal compensation. The toxic atmosphere he helped create eventually became untenable, and his character was written out of the show in ways that many industry observers understood as a direct result of his behind-the-scenes behavior. The sad reality was that Dempsey's character McDreamy was meant to be the romantic ideal, but the actor playing him apparently made the set a very unromantic place to work. Clayne Crawford got fired from Lethal Weapon after explosion injured co-star. The television adaptation of Lethal Weapon seemed like a perfect vehicle for Clayne Crawford, but his time on the show ended in spectacular disaster due to behavior that created a hostile work environment. During production of the second season, Crawford was directing an episode that involved a large explosion scene. When the stunt went wrong and shrapnel from the explosion hit co-star Damon Wayans in the head, Crawford's response set off a chain of events that would end his time on the show. Although Wayans reportedly said he was fine and declined immediate medical treatment, he returned to set the next day with a very different attitude and tried to take action against the special effects team. According to interviews with over 30 cast and crew members, the tension between Crawford and Wayans had been building throughout production, with their cold working relationship threatening to escalate into violence. Multiple sources described Crawford as creating a difficult atmosphere on set that extended beyond just his relationship with Wayans. The explosion incident became the flashpoint that brought all the underlying tensions to the surface. Warner Brothers conducted an investigation, and Crawford was ultimately fired from the show midway through production, with his role being recast for the third season. Crawford later posted an emotional apology on social media acknowledging his behavior and taking responsibility for his actions, but the damage was done and his character was written out. The incident served as a reminder that even on a show about buddy cops who break the rules, there are still professional standards that have to be maintained, and Crawford's behavior crossed lines that the studio wasn't willing to accept.